Herman Lake Road. In the midst of her, an old Ford Ring gently stopped at the side. Inside the car, the two young people's laughter rang out hesitantly, not as loud as any young couple seeking privacy away from their parents' eyes. However, that fragile piece of strange car slowly stopped behind them. Black to step down, silently approaching. No greeting, no warning. Gunshots rang out. Two crosses broke the atmosphere. Glass shattered. David fell right into the car, gave the order to run. Betty Lou fell, blood red on the ground, leaving a creepy silence. The stranger quietly walked over, looked at the victim's body with cold steel eyes, to record the signs outside the bullets and the demise, then gently stepped into the car, driving as if completing a secret ritual. Betty Lou died in the room, and David, though still breathing, was eventually quickly ventilated on the way to the hospital. What about the two children? It was not a random murder case. The period of horror for decades. With a name, Zodiac, the mind of the holes of America, the night of Lake Herman Road 20, a faceless killer, without a motive, leaving only fear and unanswered questions to this day. In the late 1960s, America was going through an unprecedented period of turmoil. Outside, the Vietnam War was escalating, and young soldiers were leaving with no idea if they would ever return. At home, the anti-war movement was raging, and protests were breaking out on college campuses. Young people were turning to the hippie movement, embracing music, drugs, and the fiery nights of Woodstock. It was called the age of free love, but it was also an age of latent insecurity. And in the shadows of that social upheaval, a killer was quietly preparing to turn California into his bloody stage. After the Lake Herman Road murders, local police quickly opened an investigation. But at the time, they had nothing. No clear fingerprints, no witnesses, and no motive. People speculated that it might have been a personal vendetta, a random act of violence, but all that was speculation. The murder of the lovers fell into a stalemate. And then, just half a year later, the Zodiac returned. On July 4th, 1969, right on the occasion of the American Independence Day, when fireworks were lighting up the sky in a deserted parking lot near Blue Rock Springs, near Vallejo, a new tragedy occurred. At that time, Darlene Ferrin, a young, beautiful woman, 22 years old, was sitting in the car with her friend Michael Mago. Their laughter and conversation were interrupted when headlights flashed from behind. A strange car stopped, then drove away. But just a few minutes later, the car returned. The man got out, walked towards the window. Michael thought it was a patrol police, confusedly rolled down the window. But immediately, a flash of fire from the gun, bullets exploded in the summer night. Darlene was hit many times, fell dead on the spot. Michael, although seriously injured, still survived. In the moment between life and death, he saw the killer's face, but only a large, featureless male figure. This time, the killer did not leave in silence. Just over an hour after the attack, a strange call came into the Vallejo Police Department. A hoarse male voice came through the phone. "I want to report a murder. If you go to Blue Rock Springs Park, you'll find them. A girl and a boy. I killed them. And I killed those two kids last Christmas." The operator was stunned. This was no coincidence. This was a killer who was defying the entire legal system. The police immediately investigated, but he was like a ghost. He left no trace, no clues other than his voice and the bullets. But the scariest thing was still ahead. A few weeks later, 3 major California newspapers, the San Francisco Chronicle, the San Francisco Examiner, and the Vallejo Times-Herald received the letter. The handwritten letters were scrawled, deliberately misspelled, but the tone was arrogant. "I am the killer of Lake Herman Road and Blue Rock Springs. This is the code. If you do not publish the entire letter on the front page, there will be more bloodshed." Along with it was a complex code of hundreds of strange characters, a string of symbols that he claimed would reveal his true identity. The nation was shocked. The press was compelled to publish the letter, not only because of intimidation, but also because of the enormous curiosity of the public. The people were haunted by the image of a serial killer who had named himself, who had turned himself into a terrifying legend, and he chose a name full of hidden meanings. Zodiac, a symbol of the stars, of fate, of the circle of destiny. In those days, the victims' families lived in fear. Vallejo residents were afraid to go out at night. The press was racing to cover each story, making Zodiac a front-page headline. But behind the scenes, the police were stumped. The code he sent, later known as the Zodiac 408 cipher, baffled experts. Finally, after just a few weeks, a couple of amateur teachers solved most of the mystery. The content of the code did not reveal his true identity, but only contained sick words. He enjoyed killing people, because killing made him feel fun, because the victims would become his slaves in the afterlife. It was a cruel game, a game whose rules were set by the killer. From then on, the name Zodiac began to spread terror. He not only killed people, he also enjoyed the panic he created. The media, consciously or unconsciously, had turned him into the dark icon, mentioned in coffee shops, in newspapers, even in family conversations. California had not experienced such a haunting since the days of Jack the Ripper in England, and it was only just beginning. In late July 1969, America was filled with jubilation as humans had just set foot on the moon. The global press hailed the great achievement of Apollo 11, and the image of Neil Armstrong walking on the gray surface of the distant satellite became a symbol of human intelligence and strength. But while the whole world looked up to the sky, in California, another darkness was silently surrounding, pulling people back to their most primitive fear, death. On August 1st, 1969, 3 major newspaper offices simultaneously received strange envelopes. The couriers handed them over as if it were a routine job, not knowing what was inside. But when the editors opened them, the whole room seemed to cool down by several degrees. The scribbled, sloppy notes, written in blue ink, declared bluntly, "I am the killer of the 2 teenagers on Lake Herman Road and the couple in Blue Rock Springs. Here is the proof. I have attached the code. You must publish the entire letter on the front page, or I will kill people this weekend. And this time, I will not stop at 2 victims." The signature at the end of the letter was a circle with a cross in the middle, a symbol no one had ever seen before. A logo for evil. Journalists and police immediately understood that they were dealing with a killer with a dangerous mind. He not only acted with violence, but also used words and the media to spread fear. The fact that he sent the letter to 3 different newspapers was a clever calculation. He wanted to make sure his voice would be heard everywhere, not silenced by some editor. What stunned the nation was not the confession, but the accompanying cipher. Hundreds of strange symbols were arranged in squares, like a mysterious alphabet from an alien civilization. The symbols included circles, triangles, plus signs, and alternate letters. Some symbols were repeated, suggesting that it may be a substitution cipher. The killer claimed that if he could solve it, the police would know his true identity. But did he really intend to reveal himself? Or was it all just a cruel joke? Under pressure from public opinion, all 3 newspapers agreed to publish the letter and the cipher on the front page. Readers bought the newspapers not just for the news, but for clues about the killer who was haunting the land. People passed the newspaper around like a charm, both scared and curious. In coffee shops, offices, and even classrooms, people tried to decipher the string of characters. And then, a couple in Salinas, Donald and Betty Hardin, high school teachers, unexpectedly became heroes. They were not military cryptographers, nor police officers, but simply puzzle lovers. One evening, they decided to give it a try. With patience, they discovered a pattern. Many symbols were used to replace English letters. Each piece of the puzzle gradually became clear. When the complete translation was sent to the police, the whole of America shuddered. The content of the cipher did not reveal the killer's name. Instead, it was a manifesto of a madman. "I like to kill people because it is fun. Killing people is more fun than hunting animals. Humans are the most dangerous species. When they die, they will become my slaves in the afterlife." The lines were like a knife cutting straight into the public's mind. This was not just an ordinary killer. This was a man who killed for fun. And more than that, he wanted the world to know him, to become a legend in the collective horror. From that moment on, Zodiac was different from other serial killers. He did not hide himself completely. On the contrary, he wanted to be seen, wanted to carve his name into history, but still maintained a mystery that no one could touch. In the following months, more letters were sent. Each time, the handwriting was scribbled, the tone was defiant. He called the police pigs, mocking them for their incompetence. He threatened to shoot up school buses, causing parents across the state to panic. And each time, the press was forced to report it, inadvertently turning Zodiac into the dark star of the era. But what was even more terrifying was the truth. He did not talk. He continued to strike. In September 1969, a couple picnicking by Lake Berryessa were attacked by a stranger wearing a black robe with a circle and a cross on his chest. He tied them up and stabbed them repeatedly. The girl died, The boy survived to tell the story. This time, the Zodiac was more than a voice on the phone. A letter on paper. He had a form. He had left a symbol on his shirt, and terror spread across California like an epidemic. But deep down, what frustrated the police most was not the number of victims. It was the sick game the Zodiac was playing. He didn't kill to hide. He killed to be seen. Each letter, each code, was a piece of the puzzle. In the fall of 1969, rural California was awash in the golden hues of fallen leaves. Lake Berryessa, a popular weekend picnic spot, reflected the calm afternoon sun, its surface rippling with ripples. On the lawn by the lake, Brian Hartnell, a 20-year-old law student, sat chatting with his girlfriend Cecilia Shepard, 22. They spread out a thin blanket, opened a basket of food, and enjoyed a peaceful afternoon. But that peace was about to turn into a terrifying nightmare. Around 6 p.m., Cecilia suddenly noticed a figure approaching in the distance. At first, she thought it was just a fisherman or another picnicker. But as they got closer, the figure sent a chill down her spine. The man wore a strange black outfit, his head covered by a cloth cap with eye holes, and on his chest was clearly printed a circle with a cross, the logo that appeared in the infamous letters signed Zodiac. He held a pistol in his hand. Brian tried to keep calm and said, "Do you need anything?" "My friend." The man did not answer immediately. His voice was deep and even, echoing through the cloth. "I want money. I just escaped from prison. I need your car to escape to Mexico." The words seemed reasonable, but the eyes that flashed through the gap in his mask did not resemble someone who just wanted to steal a car. Zodiac approached, ordered the two to lie down, then calmly tied their hands with the rope he had brought with him. Brian and Cecilia, in their moment of despair, still believed that he might just steal the car and leave. But the terrible truth was quickly revealed. After tying them up, Zodiac pulled out a knife. Without warning, he bent down and stabbed Brian repeatedly in the back, each blow heavy and decisive. Cecilia screamed, her whole body trembling, trying to turn around but to no avail. Immediately after, the blade moved to her slender body. Blood gushed out, staining the picnic blanket still covered in breadcrumbs and juice boxes. Before leaving, Zodiac did not forget to leave his brand. He used a marker to write on Brian's car door, a circle with a cross, below which were the dates and locations of previous murders, and the words, September 27th, 69-6. 30 by knife. A chilling declaration. I was here, and I killed with a knife. Brian, though badly wounded, miraculously survived. Thanks to being discovered by a passerby, Cecilia did not. She died a few days later in the hospital, becoming one of Zodiac's most tragic victims. The Berryessa case marked a turning point. For the first time, the public saw the killer in person. The black suit, the monstrous symbol, the deep voice, all transformed Zodiac from an invisible ghost into a demon with form, and the fear flared up many times over. Just a few weeks later, on the night of October 11th, 1969, the Zodiac struck again, this time in the middle of crowded San Francisco. Taxi driver Paul Stein, 29, picked up a ride in the theater district. The destination, Washington and Cherry, a quiet corner in the upscale Presidio neighborhood. When the cab pulled up, Paul thought he was about to collect his fare and end his shift. But instead of paying, the stranger pulled out a gun and shot him in the head. Shots rang out across the neighborhood, but many thought it was fireworks or a car engine. A group of teenagers saw the scene from the windows of a house across the street and called the police. They described it as a large man with short hair and glasses, calmly stepping out of the cab with blood on his shirt. The unbelievable happened. Just minutes later, 2 patrol officers in a patrol car saw a suspect matching the description. A large, white man, walking quickly, but the dispatcher mistakenly reported that the perpetrator was black. This fatal mistake kept the 2 officers from stopping to check. The Zodiac passed them, as calm as an innocent bystander, and disappeared into the darkness of the Presidio. The gruesome crime scene. Paul Stein slumped in his seat, blood spilling onto the steering wheel. But even more horrifying, the police discovered that part of the victim's shirt had been cut off. No one understood why, until a few days later, when another envelope arrived at the San Francisco Chronicle. Inside, in addition to the letter full of words mocking the police, was a bloody piece of cloth, Paul Stein's shirt. It was irrefutable evidence. The taxi killer was the Zodiac. In the letter, he boasted, "You can't catch me. Last night, I was right in the police's line of sight. They even talked to me, but then let me go. The whole city was shaken. This time, it was no longer deserted streets or remote parking lots. Zodiac had dared to kill in a crowded neighborhood, in front of witnesses, and then escape unscathed. The press described him as an urban terrorist. Hundreds of police surrounded the Presidio, searching every nook and cranny, but all in vain. Zodiac had disappeared as if into thin air. After this case, fear reached its peak. Schools had to increase security. Parents were terrified when they heard a threat in a letter that Zodiac would shoot out the tires of the bus and kill the children as they ran away. The bus. After the Paul Stein case, the pressure mounted on the San Francisco police and the FBI. The newspapers were filled with Zodiac headlines, and the public lived in fear. The authorities needed answers. Who was Zodiac? Hundreds of leads were collected. Thousands of calls came in from people reporting my neighbor as Zodiac. My coworker is acting strange. I saw a guy just like the sketch, but sorting through the chaos of information was nearly impossible. Then one name emerged, a man who convinced the police they had found the killer. Arthur Lee Allen. Arthur Lee Allen, an elementary school teacher fired for child molestation, was the epitome of a suspicious person. He lived alone, had a history of violence, enjoyed hunting, and collected weapons. In the file, Allen had told friends that he wanted to kill people, wanted to bomb a school bus, matching the threats in the Zodiac letter. Once, the police interrogated Allen. He appeared with a large body, a potbelly, and eyes that were absent-minded but contained a hidden sense of insecurity. When asked about Zodiac, Allen gave a half-smile, then said, "If I were really Zodiac, do you think I would be stupid enough to sit here and answer?" That half-joking, half-serious remark made the atmosphere in the interrogation room seem thick. There were many suspicious coincidences. Allen had a Zodiac watch with a cross symbol on the face, exactly like the symbol in the letter. Allen also lived near the crime scene, had a strange handwriting habit, and friends said he often daydreamed about becoming a notorious killer. The police were almost certain this was the Zodiac. But when the handwriting was examined, experts concluded it did not match the Zodiac letter. When fingerprints were examined from the scene, they also did not match. Years later, when DNA technology was developed, the DNA sample on the Zodiac stamp did not match Allen. All the evidence pointed to him, but the final forensic evidence was negative. Zodiac, once again, escaped the siege. Not only Allen, many other names emerged during the years of investigation. Rick Marshall, an eccentric man who liked to record his voice, lived a reclusive life. Many people said his voice was exactly like Zodiac's on a tape recording, but there was no concrete evidence. Lawrence Kane, a repeat sex offender, lived near the area where Donna last disappeared. His appearance and psychological profile were both consistent with the Zodiac portrait. But once again, the forensic evidence was not enough. Ted Kaczynski, who later became known as the Unabomber, a mathematical genius, a recluse, writing threatening letters to newspapers, making bombs, all of which were associated with the Zodiac. But the FBI ruled it out. The timing and evidence did not match. Each name that appeared raised the public's hopes, but then all hit a dead end. The police seemed to be chasing a ghost who knew how to erase traces. He left no DNA, no clear fingerprints. No witness dared to confirm absolutely. At times, many people even hypothesized, could it be that Zodiac was just one person? The letters were written in different styles. The cases were separate in location and method. Could it be a group of people, or even a secret society? The more they investigated, the more vague the Zodiac's portrait became. Another surprising twist. Many researchers believe that Zodiac may have stopped killing long ago. After the Paul Stein taxi case in 1969, no murders were ever confirmed to be his. The letters kept coming, but the murders remained silent. So was Zodiac gone? Dead? Or back to normal life as an anonymous citizen among millions? The question sent shivers down the spine of the public. The thought that a serial killer could be sitting next to us on the bus, standing behind a counter, or walking in the park right now was too terrifying to accept. Zodiac was more than a murderer. He was an icon, a ghost of mystery, and the fact that he was never caught is the biggest twist in the story. Decades have passed since the first bloody Zodiac letters surfaced, but despite the FBI, California police, and scores of amateur investigators dedicating their lives to the case, the true identity behind the Zodiac Killer has never been definitively established. Time has taken its toll. Witnesses have died. Paper records have yellowed. Physical evidence has deteriorated, and even once famous suspects like Arthur Lee Allen have died alone, taking their mysteries with them. Yet every time a secret document is deciphered, every time a new clue is posted online, the case flares up again like a smoldering fire. In 2020, a group of amateur cryptographers finally cracked the code 340 that Zodiac sent to the Chronicle in 1969. The message did not reveal his identity, but contained the following arrogant words: "I do not fear the gas chamber, for it will take me to heaven sooner. I have slaves to serve me." Not a word about his real name, not a single concrete clue. Just mockery, even after more than 50 years. There is a chilling paradox in the Zodiac story. He did not kill as many as other serial killers in American history. The number of confirmed victims was only about 5, suspected to be more. But what immortalized Zodiac in the collective memory was not the amount of bloodshed, but the way he turned his crimes into a public spectacle. He not only killed, but also forced the whole world to witness, to fear, to play a sick charade with him. He turned the press into a stage, the police into helpless spectators, and the people into victims of his obsession. Perhaps, for Zodiac, the greatest power lies not in the gun or the knife, but in the fear he sowed. Today, the Zodiac case has become a part of popular culture. Books, movies, investigative documents, all exploit this mystery. David Fincher's 2007 film, Zodiac, recreated that obsession, so that the younger generation also knows about a nameless monster. On online forums, thousands of amateur detectives are still busy debating, piecing together clues, hoping that one day they will lift the curtain. But the biggest question has never been answered. Who is Zodiac really? A psychopath who lived in hiding all his life? A normal man who went to work in the morning and came home at night, carrying a murderous secret in his heart? Or just an urban ghost where various killers have used the Zodiac identity to spread terror? We may never know, and that is the open ending of the story. The Zodiac Killer is more than just an unsolved case. He is a symbol of what humans fear most: the anonymity of evil. We often believe that justice always has an answer, that criminals will be punished. But the Zodiac stands there, laughing at us all, a scar on American criminal history. The final message may be this: the devil does not always appear with horns and a tail. Sometimes, the devil puts on a normal face, blends into the crowd, and walks past us on the street. And the scariest thing is not how many people he killed, but that he made the whole society live forever in the darkness of suspicion and fear. Zodiac was never caught, and perhaps that is what made him a legendary killer.